Good evening, everybody. This is Pradeep Khanna from Sydney in Australia. And I am here to kick off GCC, that is Global Chapters and Connections Initiative, episode number 7. As we enter the 7th week of our global engagement. So what is GCC? It is all about making a global community. It is all about making a value-adding global community where emotional connect is only at the foundation level. And we look at building up different value attributes which appeal to our wide cross-section of alumni, right from 1966 graduates to 2020 graduates. It is all about a global engagement where anybody from any part of the world can connect with anybody else. Today, we have a packed agenda. Like last meeting, we are again going to be discussing a topical theme. And the theme this time is innovation and social impact in education. I am going a bit slow because I am also finding that I need to admit everybody who's joining in the call today. I thought I had changed the settings in Zoom, but it seems to be playing up again. So please excuse me if I am time and again moving my head left to right to make sure that everybody is admitted into the meeting. So coming back to it, the theme for today is innovation and social impact in education. And we have 4 wonderful alumni leaders speaking at this session today. We actually had 5, but the 5th gentleman has come down with a very bad throat as well as fever, so has had to pull out at the last time. But we'll be having this gentleman at another session later on. So who are the 4 people who are joining us today for a discussion on the topical theme? Number 1 is, and this is in alphabetical order. Number 1, Aditya Bhatnagar, 1977 BTech. Somebody who has been spending a fair bit of time in education, edtech, and of late, he has been very strongly getting focused onto the social sector. So Aditya, can you please raise your hand? And can I ask everybody to give a round of applause to Aditya?
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning and good evening, everyone. And good, I don't know whether it's good, whatever, Pradeep, but
so
yeah.
Aditya, potentially it is 6 a.m. in the morning in the US West Coast. It is 11 p.m. in Sydney in Australia, and somewhere in between the 17 hours time span between Sydney and US West Coast. Now over to the number 2 speaker, that is Professor Kushal Sen. Kushal, have you joined? Let me quickly check whether Kushal hasn't joined as yet. Let me kind of make sure what has happened to Kushal. Aditya, can you just send a WhatsApp message to Kushal? And to, you can do that in the 77 WhatsApp group and ask him, just remind him that it is in Zoom. Because sometimes people seem to be making a mistake of whether it is going to be Zoom or Google Meet. Let me move on. The third speaker of the day today is Prachi. Prachi, let me see if Prachi has joined.
Yes, Pradeep, I'm here.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. So we have Prachi Jain Windlers, 1999 BTech from IIT Delhi, and an MBA from the Booth School from Chicago, as well as the country head for education for Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. Please give a round of applause to Prachi. I can see that Kushal has joined. So let me introduce Kushal. Kushal is a professor with IIT Delhi. He is a professor of textile engineering, but has also been heading the Education Technology Service Center at IIT Delhi. Both Aditya and Kushal are my batchmates. And Kushal has been quite significantly involved in rolling out MOOCs and a whole lot of EdTech initiatives at IIT Delhi, and that is why we have him over here. So Kushal, can you please raise your hand? And can everybody give a round of applause to Kushal, please? Last but not the least is Naveen Mittal. Naveen is 1995 BTech from IIT Delhi. And he joined IIS in 1996. Across his span in the IIS, he's had a number of interesting positions. Currently, he is with Telangana government as the Commissioner for Higher Education and for Technical Education. Can we give a big round of applause to Naveen, please? Naveen, can you raise your hand?
Yeah, Pradeep, good to join you.
And the gentleman that we are missing today is Rakesh Gupta. He's actually Dr. Rakesh Gupta, as he has also done his PhD from Johns Hopkins after doing his BTech from IIT Delhi. He is a 1993 graduate from IIT Delhi, joined IIS in 1994, and is currently, he's got a number of roles. One among them is the Principal Secretary to the Chief Minister of Haryana, and he has a whole lot of other roles. But the most prominent one for which he is known for is Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao initiative. But unfortunately, he's come down with fever and with sore throat. So we'll have him at a later point in time. Now, let's kickstart the discussion. Now, what I will be doing is I also want the 4 alumni to walk through their journey post IIT. And I will ask this in questions in between the various questions, the topical theme. And I also want you to walk through your journey from post IIT Delhi, as well as what you are doing now and what your perspectives are, both in terms of your current role as well as the IIT Delhi community. Let me kickstart the first question of the day, and the first question is to you, Aditya. And the question is technology the only driver for innovation, whether it is in education or whether it is in any other field? Over to you, Aditya. When we talk about innovation, does it mean only technology?
No, certainly not. And in my experience, and I'm talking, of course, I work with schools and with school children. Technology is not necessarily the only means of innovating. More importantly, it is, I think, to recognize that there is a world of difference between training and education. So animals train, I think. Animals train their young ones. And all of us, some of us are grandparents or parents, we are familiar with things like training a child to walk or potty training and so on and so forth. So that is training. That's an essential part of life. Education, I think, is different. And education is more about learning how to think and trying to get people to understand what is thinking. So if we're going down that path, then technology, it's not that technology has no role, but to say that technology only has a role is only technology can bring about a quality education, uh, to my mind is not so.
In other words, you've given a very good example. You've given an example of animals training the young ones and how they train their kids to survive in a jungle. And what you're saying is they have not heard about technology. Okay, a good point. And let me move across to Prachi. Prachi, you work for Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. It is a social enterprise. I get confused. What is a social enterprise? What is an NGO? And how does that differentiate from, I know that the government is different, but what is the difference between a social enterprise and an NGO?
Pradeep, I think there's not a difference because even an NGO is a social enterprise. It's just a social enterprise which does not take out its profit or its surplus from the organization. So we look upon as at Michael and Susan Dell, we are very flexible with our capital, and we are not looking at, we are agnostic to the method through which you are achieving that impact. So we work with a lot of social enterprises, and now to clarify the definition is that there are lots of there are a lot of for-profit startups in India which are actually having the objective of social impact. So these are companies which are creating products and services for a certain target segment. So for example, the microfinance companies in India, we consider them social enterprises because they are helping the unbanked in India. Similarly, a lot of companies in education, which are creating specific products and services, usually of affordable nature, but also suitable products for the children coming from underprivileged backgrounds, and similarly in jobs and livelihoods and skilling. So a lot of these companies are for profit because they believe that they will not be reliant on any grants or any government support as they scale. They create value for the customer, they value their customer, which is low income families, and they would grow through that model. So these are for-profit companies in that sense, and we are investors in these companies. We are a big impact investor in India.
So, Prachi, my question is not about Michael and Susan Dell Foundation. My question is, what is the difference between a social enterprise and an NGO, or is there any difference?
So in an NGO, there will be a very similar product and services, but they will not be charging anyone. So first of all, they're not charging. They're reliant on grants. Grants is their primary source of income, and now under the new regime, it's even harder. So the primary difference is that you create a product or service for the underprivileged or for whatever cause you're set up for. In one case, you can actually you're charging the customer directly. In the other case, there's someone else who's provisioning for it. It could be the government, it could be other grant makers who actually provide you the funding. So if you ask me what is the specific difference between them, that will be the difference between them. But at the same time, both of them play a very large and equally prominent role in solving problems, especially given the topic today is education and social innovation. In that, both of them play an equally prominent role.
So you get 89.435%. So moving on to Naveen. Naveen, what has been your journey post IIT?
Okay, so I passed out from IIT Delhi in '95 and then took the civil services exam. For those who are familiar with the exam, the whole exam process is like a 1-year duration process. So you actually start with prelim and then have this mains and interview. So I kind of just took a year off and then completely was into the exams. And then I got into IS in my first attempt, and then I was allotted to the state of Andhra Pradesh, which was very lucky for me because it was one of the very progressive states in the country in the mid 90s. Because that was the time when a lot of reform was happening in India, and a lot of technology introduction was happening in the government. And Andhra Pradesh at that time was one of the leading states in India in terms of both governance reforms at the state level and also use of technology. And kind of journey has been very exciting and interesting. A lot of learning in the process, been 24 years now. So currently, I would say I'm at the level of secretary in the government. There are a few departments which I've handled in the past, which was I was secretary for finance. And so in 2014, Andhra Pradesh got divided into Telangana, and then I came into the Telangana side of Andhra Pradesh Post Division in 2014, and was secretary finance after that, and then secretary information and public relations, and then secretary for municipal administration and urban development also. For last about 2.5 years plus, I'm handling the higher education sector in the state. So I'm commissioner for higher education and technical education, handling the higher education, that is universities, colleges, and engineering colleges in the state. And I would say that this is a very interesting time to be in the education sector, especially last few months, because there's been a lot of transformation which is happening in the sector. And there are two very important things which have happened. One is, of course, the transformation which is coming in due to the COVID pandemic. Not just in India, but across the globe, we are seeing a total kind of, I would say, sort of a transformation which one sees in a time frame of, let's say, a decade, happening in a matter of few months. And the second thing, interesting thing which is happening in the education space in India is this new national education policy which has come in. So this is the third education policy which has come in post our independence. The first was in 1968. The second one was in 1986. And after a period of 34 years, we've got this new national education policy. It has been in making for last 5 years, and I must say that it is one of the most progressive policies which one can think of. In fact, a professor from ISB very recently wrote an article in Hindustan Times and compared that this new national education policy could be to education in India what the 91 liberalization was to the industry. So that's, I would say, a very interesting statement which I came across. And
So let me ask you another question. That means you become a boss now. You are like an important VIP or something like that, is it?
No, I'm not a VIP, but in the sense, I think in a position, but to contribute to the society, definitely yes. And this is one sector where I've gotten a lot of satisfaction in working. And there have been good successes which we've got, some failures also we had, learnings in the process, but then I think the satisfaction is that we are moving forward.
So I see a satisfied Naveen. So let's move on. Let's move on to Kushal. Kushal, where are you? I can see that you joined. So my question to you is that what changes did you bring about using education technology in IIT Delhi when you were the head of Education Technology Service Center?
Well, my journey has been very limited.
No, I have not asked you for your journey. I will ask you that question later on. My question is, what changes did you bring about in IIT Delhi from an education technology perspective?
So there was a time when I was the head of this education center, and there were a few people who had been before me as well. So that time a lot of things were happening, and IIT Delhi and other IITs also were making various kinds of programs. They were recording professors. They were sharing these things with other colleges also in VHS format or DVDs or CDs. That's the time when it was thought that can we broadcast it, the programs to larger public. So that time we had started in about 2003, we started a channel, called Ekalavya, which was a 24/7 technical education channel with the help of IGNU, because they had the uplinking stations, and we had one INSET 3C satellite, which was dedicated to education. So around 2003, we had an independent technology channel, which we started. Around the same time, we also started another program, which was a nationally coordinated program, which was called National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning. And it was a successful program in some sense. I will consider that 5 IITs, they were at that time, the 5 IITs actually sat together, structured the things in a manner that it would be useful to the engineering students in the country. And so it was available as National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning. And since then, of course, we moved. I was there for about 3 years, but I have not left the education technology, whatever learning that I've had. And still I'm continuing as a project investigator, shall we say, in this program.
So that's fabulous. So the courses which were being offered online, were people getting a credit for those courses?
Now they are.
But not at the time when you rolled them out.
Earlier from 2004 to 2014, more or less, there were enrichment programs. So people from all IITs, ISC Bangalore, professors in various subjects, they developed a video course as well as the web courses. They were available freely and for free to everyone whosoever could access them, either through the Eklavya, which was the technology channel, or through the website, which was the NPTEL IIT website, which was available. But 2014 onwards, I think it was thought, the government also thought that why should we not do certification? So using the MOOCs type of environment. So we started in 2014, and now people are getting certificates. And you probably may like to know that in this semester, we are doing semester-wise courses. And this semester, which has been delayed a bit from, instead of July, it's gone to September. We started in September. The last enrollment, which we freezed for this semester, which will end somewhere in November or December early, about more than 2.1 million registration enrollments have happened for various courses, which are almost 475 courses run by all IITs under the NPTEL, now a larger umbrella called Swayam. So they are getting certificates now. So today, more than 2.1 million students have registered for various courses, which will finish by the semester, and they will be getting the courses. But like any other MOOCs system, we believe about 90% or 85% people just want to learn and get no certificate. But about 12 to 15% students will actually finally go for a certificate, which we do by a proctored examination.
Got it, absolutely. And come back to your point, and especially about credentials being offered by another agency, because it picks up on the open education resource model. But let me go across to Aditya now. And Aditya, what has been your journey post IIT?
Okay. All right. So after 1977, for close to about 30 years, I've been in electronics manufacturing. And so most of my life has been on the factory shop floors, both component manufacturing. In those days, CDIL was kind of the pioneer in at least in the private sector, in making components, semiconductors and things like that. And then I moved on to assemblies, the television boom, the picture tubes. So we made picture tubes and so many other stuff. So that was an interesting part, because a lot of my colleagues who have been in manufacturing, and manufacturing is something that keeps your adrenaline up all the time. It's like being in an emergency room in a hospital, you're always on call, and but it's interesting, and there are what you learn. I feel, and I think it's a part. I look at life as a kind of a lifelong learning experience. So what I learned most from that phase of my life was that of being able to solve problems, and also be humble enough to understand that there are times when you just can't get it done in time, and as they say, things happen. So that was the major part of my journey after IIT Delhi. Around 10 years back, I was bitten by a bug, I must say, to branch out on my own, and I did that. And the motivation came from interviewing engineers who used to come. At that time, I was back in CDIL, and we couldn't afford to have Kushal's students coming to us because their salaries were this high. And so when we were getting people from other colleges, I realized that there's a huge gap. There's a huge gap here. And that gap, I thought that there's a gap which exists because not because so much of the student, but because of the system or the methodology and the pedagogy and so on and so forth, which is prevalent in such places. And I tried interventions in the space, and mainly it was trying to make engineers more employable. That was a model which was there. We tried it out in a few universities. It was not monetizable. And so for that reason, I branched out into continuing my passion with education. I started looking at schools because here I realized that the malaise lay much before a student gets into college. And since then, for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been working with schools. I live in Chandigarh, which is, I think, one of the best places in India to live in. And I just love what I'm doing. I teach, or I have a team, and we call ourselves the Mindcrafters. It's a fancy name. But I sincerely believe that what we're trying to do is really get students to think and to be able to build concepts from on their own, from wherever they are, to things which are more complex. As I said before, all of our work and all of our thing is limited to schools, but that's a very interesting area
So
to
I
be in.
like your journey that you started with manufacturing and somewhere now you ended up in the school system. And I'll pick you up on Minecraft later on. I've already made a note of that. So now moving on to Prachi. Prachi, I like your background, the beach and the palm trees. So is this what happens at Michael and Susandel? I would love you to answer that, but more importantly, I want you to tell us a bit more about the new education policy. Naveen over here has talked about, being equivalent to the liberalization which happened in 1991. Is it really about all that? And also, is it only about learning outcomes and learning engagements? What about the non-academic edtech? And by the way, this question was put up by Shashi Chawla from Boston. So over to you, Prachi. So two parts of
Pradeep,
the question. One is about your perspectives on NEP, and is any NEP, does it provide any opportunities for non-academic edtech?
sure. So I am totally with Naveen over here in terms of the power of this new education policy. It is really very strong in the vision that has laid out for K-12 education, and my perspectives are limited to K-12 education not to higher education, an area that we don't work in. So several aspects of the new education policy, which are very visionary, and that's why we is comparing it to them to the 91 kind of economic reforms. The first and foremost, across the policy, there is a very strong underlying concept of understanding, and that being, competency achievement versus just telling kids what to do or just educating. I think the shift from educating to learning is very strong, and it's throughout the education policy. It's not being an afterthought and put in one small section. And that, I think, is the biggest shift that this new education policy puts out as a vision. The second thing which is very strong about the new education policy is its focus on foundational literacy and numeracy. Because as a country, we have missed, and we are missing, therefore, big time on the outcomes as well, with 50% of kids in grade 3 not even being able to read three-letter words or do single-digit additions. So that is a big shift. It does not come about till the policy actually asks you to do it, provisions for it, tracks it. So the focus on foundational literacy and numeracy, and we already see the different people in MHRD as well as PM Modi getting after it. So that's something that we should hope to see become real in the country very soon. And the set of changes that I personally have been most excited about are around assessments, establishment of Parak. We just do not have a system of assessments. Our kids go through a system of rote-based learning, somehow, get to grade 10, and, in grade 10, again, take a really poorly designed board exam. Those of us who've managed to keep our curiosity and intellect through that stage, then toil away for an exam like JEE and, get into IITs. But we all know that, that system is harming us more than it is educating us. So assessments lie at the core of it. If you do not fix the assessments, if you do not define what learning means, then sort of like the grade 10 board exam, the college entrance exams, they become the definition of good education. And, whatever you're testing over there is what is getting taught throughout the system. So in that area, I think this policy has taken a very bold step of introducing key stage exams, grades 3, 5, and 8, define what they should be, lay out competency frameworks. I mean, of course, the policy doesn't lay out the competency frameworks, but saying that they should be competency linked. So these three aspects from the policy perspective stand out, but this has to be implemented by different states. And at least I am seeing very good early action in terms of that happening. And, if that happens, then yes, we are set to reform education over the next few years. In terms of non-academic, there is a lot of focus on that as well. And what has been very interesting from that perspective has been the policy now talking about life skills, the policy now also talking about non-cognitive skills, 21st century skills, and also talking about how technology will be used to be able to do that. So there is a special center which needs to be set up in order to do in order to help with that. So there is that part of the policy as well. I would say it is not as deep or as well defined as the academic part, but the fact that it is there, it will provide a peg to build upon. And that's the way it should have been also, I would say, because, 21st century skills, life skills, are non-cognitive skills are even not that well understood in the industry. So to leave it open for innovation is the way policy has gone.
Fabulous. You certainly got me impressed. And also looking at the palm trees and the waves in the background, if that is the office environment of Michael and Susan Dell, can I get a job over there? But I'll have you as a boss. Oh man. So let's go across.
Both will be a good thing, Pradeep.
Lovely. Let's go across to Kushal. Kushal, what has been your journey? We now come back to the journey side. We've now established your credentials as the EdTech guy, the MOOC guy. So what has been your journey till now? Where is Kushal? He was here just now. Where is he gone? Looks like he's dropped off. So we will again wait for him to join back and then move across to Naveen. Naveen, Do you get somebody to carry your briefcase with you when you walk into the office every day?
So no, actually, I don't need to carry briefcase these days because actually, you'll be surprised to you that we've become completely online in terms of our office work. So we run our office on a package which is called e-office, which is developed by the NIC. And entire our office work, I mean, all our file work is completely online. In fact, so we didn't see too much of a disruption due to COVID. And we're not used to carry too many papers around these days. I mean, mobile or an iPad or laptop is good enough.
That's very interesting. I am delighted. Then I also want, had Rakesh been here, I would have liked to compare what is happening in Haryana and what's happening in Telangana, but I will leave it that for another time. Now I move back to Aditya. Aditya, now I made a mistake when I asked the last question. The last question was actually asked by Pulkit from Sydney, which Prachi answered, which was in regard to NEP and non-academic. But now I will now come back to you with a question asked by Shashi Chawla from Boston. And what she is asking is, should all cultural institutes be expected to do their fair share of community outreach and public programming for diverse communities? So in other words, should all cultural institutes be really opening out and having their outreach to different communities? And her question is coming from the fact that she has been working with Harvard Museum in education. And she's asking this question that should all institutions be doing something like that? Over to you, Aditya.
Yeah. So the short answer to that is, of course. Why should they not? And there's a long answer also. So I think I will dwell a bit on the long answer. For anyone who's been to museums in India and been to museums, say in London or New York, for instance, you'll find a world of difference, or maybe Sydney. You'll find a world of difference in the kind of engagement that you get, in the kind of excitement that you see. You might be going to an art museum, and even if you don't know much about art, or you know about the kind of art that is presented there, say Mughal paintings, for instance, uh, I feel it's the institution's responsibility to develop that feeling in you, that passion in you, through people who are there, who are passionate enough to relate what it's all about. So the first thing I'm talking about India is that the museums and a lot of the cultural institutions in India, uh, they need an in-reach program first before they get into an outreach program. And the in-reach program should be the rich artifacts that they have. We've got a wealth of artifacts. I think some of them, some of the museums that we have are much better than the British Museum in London. But uh, visiting there and visiting here, it should give you a fantastic sort of experience. And that in-reach program is something that can come about by passionate volunteers, by some technology definitely, and maybe a marriage of two things, the technology and as well as this. I think once that is there, then you could have definitely a good outreach program. Presently, schools take their children to museums, they go there, have and so on and so forth. They come back with a little amount of learning, which most of them forget. The scene in India also is that we have a National Museum Institute. I'm sure you might be aware of that. I think it's in Noida or something like that. these people, they give out courses, they give out PhDs and masters in museum, technology, including conservation and other stuff which is there. They also have outreach programs. So they have people, going to various schools and villages and so on and so forth, and getting them to do things like puppets and so on and so forth, and all that works. There is also an organization called Flow India. And Flow India, I'm just quoting that, I am not related to them in any way. Flow India is, I've seen some of their work. They take out children for experiential outings to, one of them is to museums or to temples or to, places of culture and so on and so forth. But their volunteers are very passionate, and so they are able to make a connect there, and they're able to do a good outreach program.
The key
So
point that
Shashi,
you made,
with your
Aditya, is
experience
that
of
the
having
key
worked,
point that you made, Aditya, is that there needs to be both in-reach and outreach, and this is not a model which is very much in play for everybody as yet. With that, let me go to Prachi. Prachi, what has been your journey till date post IIT?
oh, yes. Prachi, talk about it.
I've recently completed 10 years at the foundation. So now I'm able to describe my journey almost in 10 decades, a decade of work in the social sector and a decade of work entirely in problem solving and technology before that. Before the foundation, post-graduation from IIT, I was in US for several years, working at Qualcomm and Motorola, and then later at the Boston Consulting Group. In fact, I was in Qualcomm's corporate R&D group and was amongst the very small set of engineers who were looking at data networks and the e-video protocols as they were being launched. Our first set of test site was South Korea. And when we were able to, launch and test for high network speeds, we were all scrambling and sitting that, what will people really do with data on their mobiles? Like really, what will be the use? And we were creating, all these use cases to see that can people get excited about using data. And I still remember the VP of the division had said that, entertainment is going to be the primary purpose. And, if you can start seeing movies on this network, then I think, that will be the primary use case. Education, all other use cases will come later. And yes, Netflix has ruled the network so far, even as we see it during the times of lockdown. And so I was at Qualcomm, Motorola, Boston Consulting Group. A lot of my time at BCG was also in the telecommunication industry, but I had worked at BCG in India, where I worked around several other areas of industrial growths, pharma, and many others. Throughout this journey and even prior to IIT, but got reconfirmed when I was at IIT that how much benefit of education have I as a person availed. I consider whoever I am, whatever I'm being able to do only because of certain right educational steps that I had. And at that point, I wasn't aware of how deep how deep the education crisis in India is. I really used to look upon that as there are good schools and bad schools, and there are some kids who are going to bad schools. I used to think most of the schools in India are actually good. And I had no idea that, in a test like PISA, we stand second from the bottom. So the level of education crisis in India, I only realized after I joined the foundation. I had joined with this bravado of being able to solve many tough problems, education being one of them. I personally feel that, all of us need to play a role in being able to solve that problem. And there has been no looking back ever since at the foundation. I have been very fortunate and privileged to be here, to be able to, have founders like we have and be able to really apply myself fully to be able to solve the most complex social problems, not just in education, but also in financial inclusion and livelihoods. and with work that spans across working with the government. So I work very closely with Dr. Rakesh Gupta in Haryana, and both of us really connected because we were both IIT Delhi alumni, felt very strongly about education and almost saw this dream together that, can we actually get 80% of the kids in Haryana to start learning at their grade competency levels, which they actually do now. And worked with several powerful vision setting NGOs in India, several social innovation enterprises. So it has been a very gratifying journey, and also a journey in which I think that we've been able to create certain models and certain role models through which some of these large problems can actually be solved.
That is such a fabulous journey, from being a techo to strategic consulting and now to a social enterprise. I love it. I hope Michael and Susan Dell are paying you as many big bucks as BCG was, but that's for a private chat. Now over to Kushal. Kushal, what has been your journey post IIT? Kushal Sen, you may be on mute. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I said theoretically, I am the least traveled person. I have been in IIT 1972 as a student and still at IIT Delhi. I mean, after this BTech in 77, I did try to go and join an industry, but they said within the summer vacation that if you want to join PhD, you can come back. So without doing a master's, I could come back to PhD. As I was finishing PhD, they said, well, what else can you do? You might like to teach. So I joined faculty in the textile department. You remember textile is,
Yes.
is one of the last kind of choices that we have. And there is no other IIT which has textile. Yogesh knows that. So I had to be in the IIT Delhi, and then I started enjoying it. I joined as a faculty, and well, general progression, did whatever a faculty is supposed to do, became a professor also, and officially on the 31st of this August, I've actually retired.
Oh man, how can you do that?
Well, that's called 65 years.
And I was keeping you and me are batchmates, and I was
Of
trying
course.
to keep my age a secret.
The boss is actually, at that time, at that particular end of the life, where you actually, somebody will say that you are retired. Well, of course, I'm still with them as a re-employed professor till the next session, and but passionately involved in thing. I had fun in teaching the undergraduates, the postgraduates, and you probably now know that they're in IIT Delhi and all IITs for that matter, all older IITs. The postgraduate numbers are much higher than the undergraduate numbers. We are now graduating more than 400 plus PhD students every year, which means that will go up to in next 3-4 years, double the numbers, because that's how.
That is absolutely fabulous. I was also surprised to know that now almost 60% of the population at IIT Delhi is postgraduates. What a remarkable shift that we are seeing across. Oh, thank you very much, Kushal. Really lovely to catch up with you virtually. And next time, as and when the COVID thing finishes, the next time I'm in India, we must get together for a glass of wine or something like that. Yeah, this would be great.
Yeah, of course.
Now over to Naveen. Naveen, and I have a question for you from Shashi Chawla, again from Boston. And Shashi says, should institutions open up their classes for auditing to the members of the community? And I will ask both Naveen and Kushal to respond. Naveen, do you want to go first?
Okay, so Pradeep, the straight answer would be yes, definitely yes. In fact, I was talking about the new national education policy. So one of the key features of this policy is the flexibility. And from flexibility, I mean flexibility in multiple ways. So it's flexibility in terms of the courses which you take when you actually on the campus. flexibility in terms of courses which you can do online. Professor Kushal was talking about MOOCs and the SWAM platform. So interesting thing which I want to tell is that in India now, both the UGC, which is the regulatory body for the higher education, and the AICT, which is the regulatory body for the technical education, now permit 20% of one's credit during a program, UG or PG, to be done through MOOCs on SWAM. So let's say if you have to do 160 credits for an engineering UG program, if you take an engineering, 32 credits of yours you can do on the MOOCs SWAM platform. You can do any course which your university is ready to accept for recognizing that for your coursework. And it's becoming more and more flexible by the day. And in fact, during the COVID, there's another interesting announcement which came from both these regulatory entities, which was that now this 20% limit is going to be enhanced to 40%. And we are waiting for formal orders to come on that. But the whole shift is there to more and more flexibility. So this is the second thing which I thought I'll talk about. The third way the flexibility is coming is we are talking about multiple entries and multiple exits. That means that you don't have to spend continuous 4 years in a college to do your graduation. You can actually spend a year in the college, go out, work, come back, do another year or two, go out, and then come. So if you do a 1-year program, you get a certificate. If you do a 2-year program, you get a diploma. A 3-year, you get a basic bachelor's degree, and a 4-year, you get either a professional degree or a BTech or a bachelor degree with honors or bachelor degree with research. So that's another feature of flexibility which is coming in. And the fourth thing in which there is also a very interesting I would say change which has come in the new policy is a concept of academic credit banks. So learning is not limited or restricted to the campus. It's not that when one is in the campus, one is learning, but learning is a continuous, a lifelong journey. So for working professionals who cannot leave work and go to a campus to get a degree, which they would like to pursue, you can actually keep building credits by doing some of the courses which are offered either on campus or on, and then keep depositing them in a credit bank. And once you have a adequate number of credits in that bank, you can then encash those credits for a certificate or a diploma or a degree or a PG or advanced diploma or you name it. I mean, and what a university can permit can do that. Now, coming to the specific question which you said that opening those courses for audit purpose to the community, I think is an interesting concept. It is happening in US. Unfortunately, it has not yet happened in India, but going forward, I think the way our campuses are going to be redesigned in the future with this whole talk of flexibility, which has already been talked about in detail when it is implemented. I think there'll be more and more chance and more possibilities for people to come to the campus without enrolling for a program for auditing a particular course or even taking a course for credit purpose also and depositing into your credit bank. So I think they're very interesting times ahead.
So thank you very much. But in the process, you have taken Kushal's airtime also. If that be the case, I will go to the last question of the day. And this is by Arvind from Germany. Now, Arvind is asking about the mismatch between education and skills, what is happening in India. And really what he's talking about is that we've got thousands and thousands of people who are getting degrees in India, but then are ending not finding any jobs. Whereas we have possibly one of the biggest blue-collar workforce, in the country as compared worldwide, but they are not getting the right amount of professional development. So how do we address this mismatch? And I will take a stab at that, Arvind. And you see, the reality is, and I'll give you an example of an initiative that we are, working on from the VR AR Association perspective. I am the executive director Asia Pacific for the VR AR Association. What we find is that In VR AI for that, for everybody, this thing is virtual reality and augmented reality. That there are niche skills which are required. And you see, sometimes you find that there are shortages of these skills at different parts of India, for example. So we've launched some capacity building initiatives where we've got 4 pillars of collaboration. One is an academic institute or a training provider. On the other hand is the industry, which is the actual user of the skills. And the third pillar is the industry, which is actually supplying those solutions. And the fourth pillar is the students or the trainees themselves. So we are building up this 4-part model to get students to get industry specific skills, which are in need, rather than getting them all across. Because in the brave new world, as far as the new education policy, when we talk about the 21st century skills, skills are becoming more important as compared to education. Education is laying a foundation, but as we go down the lifelong learning path, we may need to dip in and out of the learning continuum. So with that, and Prachi, do you want to add on any comment before I close off the panel session today? So Prachi, are you there?
Yes, Pradeep, I'm there, but you've addressed it very well. I don't want to add anything.
So if that be the case, folks, ladies and gentlemen, can you give a big round of applause to all the 4 lovely leaders, who've taken out the time. Of course, they are IIT Delhi alumni, and if they're not taken out the time, I will hold them to account. I said, why are you not joining in when you have an opportunity? Just no, but jokes apart, it's been absolutely fabulous to see this group, from different part of stakeholders, from the government, from the social impact, from education, and how in their own ways, when we come down to innovation, it doesn't mean we have to change the world. It is how we can do things in a better way, whether it is by incremental innovation, and how we can make a difference in the way we are doing things. So thank you once again, and we'll be picking you up in the weeks ahead to come. There is another session which is specifically aimed at lifelong learning and lifelong working, along with another session that we are planning on aged care. So we will cover a whole range of interesting topics. So now moving on to the next item of the agenda, which is presenting an advisory board member. And I am delighted to present to you my batchmate. Man, what is it? Every second person seems to be a batchmate. Well, that's the luxury when you drive an initiative. So I'm delighted to present Amardev Sharma from Germany. Amardev Sharma is 1977 BTech from IIT Delhi. And I actually got reconnected to him recently through another of our batchmates, Anil Gupta. Amardev is general manager for NEC Labs in Germany. He has been living in Germany for almost 43 years since the time he finished IIT Delhi. But I will not steal his thunder. Please give a round of applause to Amardev. He is an advisory board member, especially looking after Europe. And while the world may have gone through Brexit, but we still believe that UK and Europe need to be one common chapter from IIT Delhi alumni perspective. So Amardev, over to you. Amardev, you need to unmute yourself.
Yes, I did so. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, that's strange.
Oh, now we can see you. No, that was just to put you on a spot.
Right. So I'm just trying to find the right thing to share right now. So yeah, so you might be able to share the, see my slides as well. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. And also thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to so many people from IIT Delhi. It's been really a long time. I've passed through IIT Delhi a couple of times, been inside once or twice afterwards, but I feel it's a strange feeling when you get back to the place that you studied, and it's a lot of memories that come up then. So what I'm going to be talking about today, especially because I've been in Europe basically most of the time after I left IIT Delhi, is what kind of R&D directions and challenges we have, because I've been involved also in research.
But Amardev, in the beginning, I want you to talk about your journey post-IIT.
All right. Okay. So I will do that. Right. So leaving IIT Delhi, I then continued and did my master's at the Technical University of Darmstadt, completing my studies there in 1980. There was some kind of a hassle because the German system is not quite the same as the, let's say, the Anglo-Saxon system, which is kind of also mostly adopted in India. And so I had to get a lot of my courses recognized, and that took me almost a year to do that. And then I did another 2 years of master's. And after that, I joined, having specialized in electrical engineering and then communications engineering, I joined what was then the Deutsche Bundespost, which included what has become Deutsche Telekom later, which is the telecommunications offering company, which is now a private company, of course, and competes with a lot of others as well. So getting to Deutsche Telekom, I was involved in research from the very beginning with things many people don't even know about anymore, like ISDN or ATM, the asynchronous transfer mode, going on and being involved a lot in R&D activities that were coordinated across Europe. So I got my first experience there as well. Later on, I left Deutsche Telekom on a secondment to Euroscom, which is another, which is a company in Heidelberg, and where that was basically a company at that time which was a joint venture amongst telcos across Europe, like including Deutsche Telekom, of course, but also France Telecom, now Orange, or Telefonica, and many others as well. So I was involved in coordinating common projects at the time. Then after Euroscom, I was shortly back at Deutsche Telekom, but then I decided to leave and get back into more concrete research. So that's when I joined the NEC labs in Heidelberg again. And I've been there ever since. So it's been quite a long time there as well, almost 20 years now. And there I've been involved in all kinds of things. Of course, initially the same kind of topics that I had in the beginning, like communications engineering. And now it's mostly things around security amongst and artificial intelligence and 5G, of course, which is a big topic. So that's been my way until now. And I've been, of course, in the meanwhile, I'm married and I have 3 granddaughters, 2 of whom are right here with me at the moment.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So I see that you've got more hair on your head than I have, but that's maybe the German water. But back to you.
Well, it's a lot less than I used to have.
So back to you now. And in terms of, you spent a lot of time in R&D and in research. I'm looking forward to know your presentation.
Right. So what I'd just like to talk about a bit is what's different in Europe, not just about research itself, but the way companies exist and are made up here. And the first difference I would say is that despite the fact that I've been in big companies all my life, that's not the norm. Most of the companies in Germany and in Europe tend to be small and medium-sized enterprises, starting from micro enterprises to medium, and they create most of the jobs that exist here. So that's a difference to many other parts of the world. And many of them have global business, even though they're very small. So a lot of the export from Germany is, and from Europe to other countries, not necessarily only by the big companies, but it's also a lot of small companies specializing in things even like making musical instruments, for example. So that's one thing that is quite different. And maybe some of you know it, maybe some of you don't. And the other thing is that, which I've been involved in since the very beginning, is that there's a lot of common European research. So it's not just national. There are national programs as well. Germany has its own, France has its own, the UK has its own. But there's a joint program which is called the Framework Programs of the European Union, where industry and universities collaborate. And in fact, industry across, even competitors get together to do work that is non-competitive. And the idea behind this is to bring European industry up a little bit. And much of this is not just done in Europe alone, and that's what I'd like to point out. Some of these programs are done together with other countries, like there are India, Japan calls for projects, there are India, Canada calls, and maybe that's something that could be also in the future with European and India calls doing research together. I'm not aware of any of those at the moment, but that's certainly something that I think we can take up. And I've just shown at the bottom here of the slides, maybe I should put this in presentation mode, that'll probably be a bit better. You can see that typical examples of what the calls are today, like transparent and accessible seas and oceans towards digital twin, which is a topic also in our company at the moment. And treatment of patients and using artificial intelligence. So this is just two ad hoc examples of calls that are open for submission right now. So companies, universities, they put consortia together and they try to get these projects accepted. And this goes through a evaluation process, and that's become more and more difficult in the last years. And in the meanwhile, it's just 4 or 5% of the proposals that get through. So it's been very, very competitive now. And some of the major issues, and I'm going to, of course, talk a lot about the areas that I'm involved in, which is communications engineering and computer science, are at the moment in artificial intelligence and machine learning. Of course, that's a topic worldwide. But what's very special in Europe are that they're looking a lot into social acceptance and what they call explainability, because there have been a lot of instances where artificial intelligence programs make decisions and nobody understands what actually has happened. Is there any discrimination behind it? Or are there other unexplained factors? So that's part also of the work that our labs are doing right now, is how can we enhance artificial intelligence with being able to explain that it's not just a black box that gives you some output, but what is the reason for giving you this proposal, the suggestion of what to do. The other big topic again is 5G, and they're already starting to talk about 6G now in many places. And one of the main topics here again is how to apply artificial intelligence to come to terms with the very, very complex networks, and to also break the networks apart so that you don't have the reliance on just one vendor only, but you can choose for different things, different vendors. And perhaps some of you also know that the big issue going around about Huawei. So many companies are seeing that, at least in the rest of the world outside of China, that there's quite a big opportunity for many companies to strengthen their point of their let's say their position in these areas. So one of the big concepts that we look at, for example, is the slicing concept, where you can actually provide different kind of services for the transportation area, or for somebody who wants to do streaming, because the requirements on the network are so different and they need to be fulfilled by just one network. So how do you get about that? So that's one of the big issues that we're looking at right now. And finally, in the area of security and data protection, that's perhaps one of the areas where Europe is taking a lead in data protection. Some of you may have heard about the Gdpr, which is a regulation at the European level that, on the one hand, does restrict a lot of applications from collecting personal data. But again, this is also for many companies, and we see that this way, at least from the NEC point of view, it's also an opportunity to provide services where people feel safer, that the data is not being misused in any way. So these are, in the overall research area, I think 3 different kinds of major focus areas. Again, I'm looking only at communication and computer science, which I think are going to be a focus in the next couple of years and maybe even the next decade. And finally, coming to what can I do? I mean, thank you for inviting me, Pradeep, but what can I do to help? So one of the things that I've been able to do over the 40 years now here is contacts to both industry and to universities and to key related people there, to professors, but also to people in research and beyond. So if there is any need to kind of set up links in this direction, that's something I can support the association with. And the other thing is perhaps many of you don't know much about the European research funding landscape and might want to get involved either through collaborations or other things. And we are moving there from the current program that ends this year, which is called Horizon 2020, to Horizon Europe, which starts basically next year. And what are the differences and so on, and what are the opportunities for even collaborating with companies, with universities outside of Germany, and not necessarily only India, but of course India as well. And finally, of course, helping to build the IIT Delhi Alumni Association Europe chapter. And thanks for pointing this out, Pradeep. I think it's been, I think, not a nice thing that the UK has left Europe, but I think maybe through the Indian connection, we can keep the UK and European Union together still. So maybe I can help somehow in that sense.
Man, that was absolutely fabulous. And I love the part when you talked about us trying to make a global change and getting UK back linked together to Europe. But I also love last slide of yours, where how you can help out. I think that is really, and I must invite you to speak also at the second initiative which I'm driving, which is on emerging technologies, because there's a lot of relevance. We are looking at, both in terms of research commercialization and industry academia research across both in a cross platform basis kind of a thing. So I'm very interested in picking up this discussion again. So it was absolutely lovely to connect up. So I think maybe Aditya, Kushal, yourself and me, we need to get down and have a virtual glass of wine. So with that, big round of applause for Amardev. Love it. Thank you very much, Amardev, and we'll sync up again. And now, from Germany, I go across to Houston in US. And I'm going to introduce you to a gentleman called Sundi Srinivasan. He's a 1984 BTech from IIT Delhi, and then did his MBA from MIT Sloan School of Management, and has worked for a very long time with Schlumberger. So I know that Schlumberger pays quite well. So I thought that when he's coming on this thing on our session today, maybe he'll be doling out a couple of dollars to all of us over here. Not sure whether he's going to do that in Bitcoins or in some other currency, or it's going to be the hard cash dollar. And another interesting thing that I got lost was in his profile, I read that he was involved with IIT GH. So I said, this guy is from IIT Delhi and GH looks like Guwahati. So what is this guy doing with Guwahati? And before I realized that GH actually stood for Greater Houston. Oh man, you got me lost. Please give a big round of applause to Sundi. Sundi, over to you. You are prime time media man. Over to you.
Thank you, Pradeep. Really appreciate it. I want to be very respectful of everyone's time. So tell me how much time do I have? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5?
So you have exactly 8 minutes and 29 seconds and 13 milliseconds. And you have to cover your journey post IIT Delhi, as well as Pan IIT. Over to you.
Very good. No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Since you started off with my career in Schlumberger.
Sorry. One. Are you going to hand out those dollars in Bitcoins or in hard currency? to all of us.
Yeah, I'm just coming to that. I'm going to exactly come to that. That's the first point I want to address, right? So one of the other things on my profile, you guys might have noticed, is I actually do a bit of stand-up comedy on the side for charities and so on. So let me address Pradeep's first question of the dollars. You know, I've worked like a dog for Schlumberger, otherwise known as Schlum in short, for over 25 years. And let me tell you, not every Schlum dog becomes a millionaire, you know?
I love it.
Anyway, so to address specifically Pradeep's questions, first, my journey, yes, even a company like Schlumberger does make mistakes. I was actually hired by them, and I started off my career pretty much with them, little over 25 years. I have brief stints with BP and Shell as well, so pretty much an oil and gas guy. The other interesting aspect of, I'm very fortunate to have had this experience of, the US is now the 20th country that I've lived and worked in. So that, you know, has given me a very good chance to kind of see the globe and truly understand that I've now firmly concluded that diversity doesn't exist. People are all just the same, you know? So anyway, that's another side topic. So coming back to the role within the IIT, you know, I'm sure this is true for all of you, but let me say this with passion. Everything I am today, I owe tremendously a very significant portion to the IITs. Of course, you know, parents and certain other things have their role, but the IITs played a significant role in who I am today. So I truly enjoy giving back to the IITs. So in 2004, I founded the Houston chapter of the IIT, which is the IIT AGH that Pradeep was referring to. Going great guns, founded in such a way that nobody should have involvement in it for more than 2 years. Let the next generation take it over with fresher ideas and so on and so forth. Going very well. And as of January this year, quite privileged to be, inverted commas, selected as the president of the Pan IIT for the USA. And before I forget my...
So you are now a big boss.
No, sir. Big jadu holder. You know, people in these positions have to make sweeping changes, you see. So jadu holder is a better title. Anyway, so before I forget my key message of today, right? You know, during the Corona period, a part of our organization, or part of the Alumni Association, just as Pradeep is doing so well, is to bring events such as these to the alumni, to the general population, right? We have to provide that as a service, if you like, and also to improve the branding of the IITs. Initially, when COVID came around, we said, oh my goodness, this is going to be a problem, but we actually converted this into an opportunity, and we've hosted some phenomenal events for everybody. We've had an event on education post-COVID, we've had an event on economy post-COVID, and we've had an event on fintech post-COVID. The other beauty of this is you're able to get very high quality speakers, because the ask from the speakers is not that much. You're not asking them to travel and so on and so forth, right? So just as a quick example, for the global economy, we had Raghuram Rajan. For the fintech event, we had Ashish Chauhan, the CEO of the Bombay Stock Exchange. They went off extremely well. As a quick number for you, just for the economy event, total people that watched that event exceeded 7,000 people. Just let that sink in for a minute for a video conference, right? That's massive. So what we said is we are going to try to push the envelope. And here's the key message for today, which I want to leave you with. If you remember nothing else, it's fine. But what I'm about to say next, please register. On December 4th and December 5th, we are planning to host a mega conference similar to a large global IIT conference. It's going to be extended across 2 days. So it's December 4th and December 5th. I know the time difference might make it a little tricky for Australia, but we've tried to accommodate the world to the best of our ability. We're starting it at 8 a.m. Pacific. The website is www.iit2020.org. It is free to register today. Let me put it, I don't know what's going to happen in a few days' time if you get tremendous attendees, right? We're looking to target 500,000 people, and we're looking to have 40,000 people attend this event. So this is an attempt by us at a global scale and a massive scale. The second message I want to pass is, those of you that have your own companies or you are working for mid-size or companies of any size or friends, this is an incredible platform to get visibility for your companies in the form of sponsorships. Do consider that. Most of the companies that have sponsored have really said, man, you've given us access to about 50,000 people, and that's the kind of reach that we have to give to our folk. I would be very remiss if I didn't give some time for questions, but I would be very, very remiss if I did not sincerely and with all my heart thank Pradeep. We had some excellent meetings between our group and Pradeep. We've been reaching out to all the Pan-IITs worldwide. And one of the phenomenal value additions Pradeep has already given us is he's given us Veena Sahajwala, who's accepted to be one of our speakers. So we are very proud that Australia is going to be represented in the form of Veena. It's a phenomenal speaker from what I've heard and seen on the internet. So thank you, Pradeep, for that as well. With that, I'll keep quiet, and the remaining 2 minutes and 39 seconds, I'll take questions.
So when Sundi, and we've got another Sundi over here in the group from Singapore, but talking to this Sundi, when he and I had a chat, first on Pan IIT conference, and he said, oh man, we're going to get Modi and we're going to get this and that. I said, what's so great about that? I listen to Modi every time on the Man Ki Baat, every Sunday. So I said that you guys, it is no longer the time of just getting together somebody figures, global figures, and saying, oh man, we're going to have a conference. Those days are passes in the online world when we have about 20 to 40 conferences taking our attention all the time. It's all about what kind of a story we are building. And yes, we have a community. But having said that, I know that Sundi and his team are working actively on that. And we look forward to that event. Okay. So, and in regard to, you had 7,000 people, the event we had from the VRAR Association, we had a global online summit in June, and we had 12,000 people for a VRAR summit. So this is the name of the game, but I absolutely support and want this conference to be a success like any other IIT alumni. Any questions from the audience? Please put up your hand in Zoom. There are no questions, but Sundi, delighted to have you over, delighted to have a fellow IIT Delhi person on the call today, delighted to know that you are now the president of the Pan IIT, delighted to know that you've got lofty ambitions. And that is what we need to do. We need to think high. We really want to think high and go out for it. So,
no, Pradeep, thank you. Really appreciate. Thank you very, very much. So to close, we've always been taught, don't forget the message. So IIT2020.org. That's it. Keep quiet with that.
A big round of applause for Sundi. And G8 stands for Greater Houston, not for Guwahati. In the case of Sundi. So we move on to the next item on the agenda. And as always, we've got a mystery speaker. So who is this mystery speaker for today? And we have another IIT Delhi alumni from Germany. Germany is the country of the day today. So with this, I am delighted to welcome Arvind Sharma from Germany. And let me virtually introduce Arvind to Amardev. This is the power of this platform where we are connecting people from the same country. So Arvind has done his MSc from IIT Delhi. Arvind has done his MTech from IIT Delhi. Arvind has done his PhD from IIT Delhi. Please give a round of applause to Arvind. And he spent a lot of time in Europe. So over to you, Arvind.
Namaskar, and thank you very much. Thanks, Pradeep, for this platform and this opportunity. And it's nice to see a lot of our colleagues and friends. I'll start briefly with an introduction of my days at IIT before I move on to my exploits after leaving IIT. 1975 MSc Physics from IIT Delhi, 77 MTech, and then 1982 I did my PhD. But in 1981 I joined IIT as an SSO, a senior scientific officer, and I was there till 1987. And in 1987 I moved over from the academics into the industry, and I joined Rajasthan Telephone Industries, where we started the manufacturing of push button telephones in collaboration with Ericsson. This was my journey, or my start of my career into the telecom sector. And in 1987, I traveled to Sweden and also Denmark, where I was offered a job to come and work in Denmark. I turned down the offer and told him that I need to stay and work in India for another 2 years before I can come and work. So if you're interested, you can contact me after 2 years. And lo and behold, he called me after 2 years and asked me to join him. So that started my career of traveling abroad and being in Europe. And 89, I went to Denmark, and I was working in Denmark as a salesperson for telecom test equipment. After working down there for some time, I moved over to the Netherlands, and that is when I was really got into the technology and getting into the telecom sector. And I, along with a person from KPN, we developed a test equipment which we patented and was very widely used in the Netherlands for testing of telephone lines. You know, when we have these switch boxes or these boxes outside on the street where the telephone lines from the telephone exchange come in before they branch out into the homes, there's a lot of mess on these wires. We can see that in India on the poles. And this equipment was to help them to be able to identify the telephone lines without calling up the exchange. I'm talking way back in 1990s, where the technology was not that advanced that where today we can, knowing the way the technology is advanced today, this is a known aspect of technology. But at that time, it was a very big innovation to be able to do this automated. And that was one of the first innovations that I had, which I patented along with KPN. After this small stint in Denmark, I stayed back and I joined Ericsson in the intelligent networks area of Ericsson in Rhine or in Holland. And there I happened to have one of the big advantages with me, and I was working with Ericsson on the 3G, and I had the pleasure of holding one of the first 3G handsets in my hand. And you know, in 2000, I actually held a handset in my hand on which we were able to show a live football match on the handset of a phone. And the battery life of that handset was only 15 minutes. But that was the beginning of the era that we are in today, where it's taken for granted what we are seeing on the handset. But in 2000, that was a very, very big thing to see. During that time, I also happened to travel a lot for Ericsson, and I was involved with a lot of technology. And I, in Ericsson, had another patent on preferential language while roaming. This was an application which is used in the switches of the Ericsson network. And I have a patent on that with them. So this was my journey with Ericsson and the last of my technical journeys. And in 2005, I moved over from Holland to Germany, where I stopped all technology and technical related things and moved into management of groups. And I was looking after 3 departments at a company in Holland, again in telecoms only, but not involved with technology anymore. And after this journey, which was mainly on the area of people management, I retired in 2018. Since my retirement in 18, I have had the pleasure of being involved with things that I find dear to my heart. And testing has always been something that I have found very interesting. I've always been handy in playing around with things on my own with electronics. So building small circuits and working around with them. I have now been having the time to be able to get involved with that. And I started up a little bit of my own venture where I involve in testing. And what is more important for me is to be involved with something that I can talk about in my area of interest, and that is save the environment. I'm very actively involved with things that I can do to protect our environment, mainly in two areas. One is the air and second is the water. Rainwater harvesting, I have done that in my own house here in Germany. I've done that in my own house in Jalandhar. And the other thing that is dear to me is the problem that we are having with pollution and the burning of stubble. If I was able to travel to India, I was planning to do a lot of things on that, but I'm stuck right now in Germany and I cannot travel back. There are lots of solutions that are available by technical institutions in India. IIT Roorkee, ICSSR have all developed solutions, but the farmers are not accepting it. And we need to understand where the mismatch is. This is something I want to make sure that we can get. I do not know why. Why is it that when technology is available, solutions are available, but the things are not implemented? There is a mismatch that is happening, and this is what I think we need to understand to be able to make sure that whatever we are doing gets the results. And I do not know when I will be able to get back into India and travel down there, but hopefully soon to be able to take some of these things forward. Besides that, on sports, anyway, my IIT Delhi name was AD, and I was also the squash captain for 3 years when I was there, and my interest in sports has still continued. I play golf and squash.
So that is so nice. So nice to hear about your story, Arvind. One question I have: did you like the IIT mess food so much that you did 3 degrees from IIT Delhi?
Well, I do not know if I would say I like the food so much, but at least I like the food across from the Panditji, where we used to sit at night and have a cup of chai. So that definitely was something that kept you going. Those of you who remember those Panditji's chai across from the degree hostel.
Absolutely, I remember that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also for everybody else's this thing, in the other initiative that I'm driving, which is an emerging technology, which over time will become a special interest group of GCC. And there we've got different stacks that we are kind of creating, or clusters we are creating. And these are technology stacks, but also of industries, as well as a whole lot of other kind of a thing. Because at the end of the day, the strong belief of the group is that technology is just an enabler. So what we are working on is to create a center point for getting a list of topical issues which need to be solved from an industry and a technology perspective. And Arvind is playing an active role, especially in the IoT cluster that we are forming. Arvind, along with Somnath Mitra, and there are a whole lot of other people who are involved. So it's been great to have the participation, and we'll kind of pull along Amardev also. And since both of you are located in Germany anyway, that would be great. Now, any questions from the audience for Arvind or for Germany? Arvind has some very, very interesting ideas which we've been discussing in the other initiative. But please put up your hand and the count of 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. A big round of applause for Arvind, please. Thank you very much, Arvind.
Thank you. Amardev, I'll catch up with you sometime later.
Yeah. I'll connect both of you.
Let's do that.
And also
let's do
connect
that
you
one.
with the other gentleman who is in, who's the coordinator for Europe. So he can have the benefit of mentorship of both of you as the chapters in Europe are built together for IIT Delhi. Fabulous. And now we move on to the next item, and which is the meet and greet an EC member from IIT Delhi Alumni Association. And I'm delighted to present Jyotsna. Jyotsna is the secretary of IIT Delhi Alumni Association. She's actually a 1982 and then again 1984 alumni from IIT Delhi. Jyotsna, please give a big round of applause to Jyotsna.
Thank you everyone.
Jyotsna, my first question to you.
Yeah.
In the days that I finished IIT Delhi, the secretary used to be somebody whom would sit opposite me, and if I were dictating notes in shorthand, they would take notes. Is that what a secretary of IIT Delhi Alumni Association does?
No, no.
Jokes apart. So let's hear first of all, Jyotsna, what has been your journey post IIT, and then talk about the EC part of it.
Okay. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are. I started my journey with a job joining in a startup in '84. That was started by 6 IITians from different IIT. It was called Softtech Private Limited. They were building compilers, database management systems, assemblers. So it was a very fresh idea at that time. Otherwise, there used to be only big companies. It was fun. I stayed there for 4 years, took part in making compilers. We built a Hindi word processor at that time. So after 4 years, then I moved on. I changed to TCS. There also I was into system software kind of a thing, building networks. ISO, OSI 7 layers network had started at that time. So we were building, connecting all these defense offices in Delhi, in Pune, in Calcutta, in Hyderabad. So building all that software during those number of years of stay over there. For a short while, I went to IBM USA for an assignment over there into Research Triangle Park of IBM in North Carolina. Worked on a flash memory at that time. It never existed before that.
Wow.
So after that, I came back here and then joined Fujitsu IKEM, later on Ericsson, later on GE, and now I'm on my own. In Ericsson, I was working on OSS, mobile network, operation system support, working on fault management, performance management, and element management. All those teams were with me. I was managing the teams. And in between, I wrote a book on C++, which became a textbook of Training Institute. I can't take out the name right now because I had that kind of contract with them. And now I am on my own into healthcare software and a member of Lead Angels Group, where do mentoring and advising startups and maybe a little bit of investing. And 2 years back, I saw that IIT Delhi Alumni Association had started one village program. So I just wanted to give my few hours on the weekends for that village program. That's how I went to IIT Alumni Association and started working with the team on the village developments, where we were building libraries in villages so that kids can have access to the books and they can have reading rooms where they can sit down. While working over there, we came to know like kids over there, they don't even have space to sit down and read a book because they are living in joint families and everywhere there is noise. So many of the kids, they were happy. We developed some libraries. And next year, then I fought election. I became EC member in 2019. And now last year, this year only, I became secretary. And that's how my journey is going. So from this year, you know me, the work going on over here, doing event, managing the events. We have 4 office bearers, president, secretary, joint secretary, and treasurer. So whenever, and 21 EC members in Delhi and 26 all over the globe, now you are there to help us. Or rather, we are helping you so that we are connecting with each and everyone in the alumni.
So this is a wonderful journey that, you know, you've been at the forefront of technology and you have all the big brands that you work for. And from there on to going into village adoption workshop, initiatives. That's a fabulous story. So who's the real Jyotsna? Is it the person with the social heart, or is it the techo?
It's both. It's both.
Fabulous, fabulous. And the lead angels is the same one where Dhruvnath and Shantanu?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
He is there.
Okay, very good. So what do you do in lead angels? Do you dole out cash? What happens?
No, mentor some startups.
Okay.
Advise some startups, take their presentations and decide how to help them out, funding for them or technically helping them.
Very good, very good. So anybody has any question for Jyotsna? It's been very nice because I wasn't aware of, I knew vaguely that you've done something in technology companies, but also to look at, that you've been involved in Flash and all that. It's been very interesting to hear that. And then the transition over to the social sector.
Yeah, it's fun. It's nice change. It takes out your stress.
Not only that, but I suppose what happens is that when we talk to people like Harinder, Agepal, who are there from Montreal, and so many other senior people, everybody is in that mode today when they want to give back, they want to get involved into nation building and so many other kind of factors. So it's lovely to see that. So I see that there are no questions. So a big thank you to you, Jyotsna, for coming over, and let's give a big round of applause to Jyotsna.
Thank you, everyone. It's fun meeting all of you.
Likewise. And we now come over to the last item, which is over to Anirban and to Sanjay. I don't know whether Sanjay is on the call, but to talk about, they took out a wonderful first edition of the GCC newsletter. And they are the first 2 members of the content editorial board that we are constituting, which will have representatives apart from them, representatives from special interest groups that we are forming, as well as somebody from IIT Delhi, as well as a student. So there is a lot more which is happening. So over to you, Anirban. If you want to tell us, what do you have in mind for the second one? You have a high standard to live up to your own first newsletter.
Thank you, Pradeep sir. So I'll share my screen because I have just one slide to show. And so this is it visible?
Yes, now it is.
So this is like the overall structure of the second newsletter, which I've proposed to release around October end. So it has 4 parts. So Sanjay sir, me and Pradeep sir, we kind of developed the content of the structure of this. So the focus material would be the progress on the SIGs. So we have had a number of conferences and summits on the SIGs. So I will be taking the video recordings from Pradeep sir, taking out snippets from there and including the short write-ups of each of them. So next, Professor Bhantia has agreed to talk about IC impacts. So I'll be hosting a podcast with him, and we'll try to, because IC impacts is expanding this semester. So I think this is the perfect time to kind of release it to the world for a more greater impact. Thirdly, the IITDA charter. So we'll be speaking with Manmohan sir and Sundi sir on the basic framework of the charter and the points and so on. And then I was thinking from this time, we'll be focusing on 2 global advisory board members, because last time we gave like a brief introduction of each one of them. So this time we'll be dedicating kind of more than a page on each of them. So maybe I'll start with Shashi Chawla ma'am and Amartya Sarna sir. So basically we'll be having 2 people from different geographies every time. Next, we thought about doing the Diwali Collage, but I realized that Diwali is November 14th. So we might just release a kind of a special issue in the middle with the pictures. So we'll be requesting everyone around the world to send us a picture of Diwali celebration in their country, and we will kind of merge it together into a nice, beautiful collage. But I think it'll be best if we kind of release it after the newsletter, because otherwise it'll be a really late newsletter for October, November. Thirdly, Harinder sir gave us a lot of good, really cool souvenirs and documents from their batch. So I will merge this with the newsletter as a nice interactive corner. And then we'll have the GCC ambassadors writing about themselves, their special focus area, and so on. As for the keynotes, we'll have 3 keynotes, one from Professor Rao, Ravi sir, and of course you, Pradeep sir. These will be the 3 keynotes. And special addresses, I was thinking of asking Sumit sir, who won the Roddenberry Prize this time, to write about their company. And Varun Arya sir, he came last time. He gave a really excellent speech on how we developed the Aravali Institute of Management. So these 2 would be the kind of special addresses. So this is what I have till now. I would love to take suggestions, because and I'll be starting off this week.
Absolutely, that is wonderful. And can I ask everybody on the call today? The newsletter is one of the vehicles of engagement and communication. And what that means is it's something that we should all want to read. It should relate to all of us. So, please forward interesting stories, that people would want to hear about. That's what it is about. As we create a community, there will be a couple of things. We'll be looking at the webcast and, how to blend those webcasts along with the newsletter, along with potentially awards, all as different means of engagement. And we will also be getting involved people who are focusing onto social media, etc. And this is what a community building is really about. So if that be the case, then any last minute questions by everybody, anybody from any part of the world?
Yeah, just a request here. I was planning to start an angel fund from IITD Association. How would be, this idea, if all of you want to get involved and help students who are starting startups, to arrange funds for them, where all the senior alumni get involved. Anyone wants to mentor them, to fund them, to advise them?
So I think this is a great topic, because for a couple of reasons. You see, that is what we need to do, is to encourage involvement of the IIT alumni, both from the mentoring as well as from the startup perspective. Can I suggest that, if you can give a brief write-up, we can then distribute out to everybody. Now, there are 2 parts to it. One is that if you already have a structure in mind, then we can put down the structure in the write-up that you give. Or otherwise, if you want to invite suggestions, then also we can do the same thing. But conceptually, also remember that, while, yes, there's an emotional connect, but then when you look at from a mentoring perspective, fabulous. But when it comes to investment perspective, it will have to go through the respective, investment lenses to see whether and what startups kind of make up. But yes, this is a great idea. So thank you for that. So send across a write-up, and we will, and let me know whether you would like to go down the path of either you already have a structure in mind, or that you are looking for input for creating a relevant structure. Either way,
I'm looking for inputs. I would like to get ideas also.
Fabulous. Then put down the concept and let it get it distributed across, and then we can revisit it once people have time to think about it and to read about it. But I think it's a great thing, and I think something that we should be absolutely looking forward to doing, kind of stuff. Thank you very much for raising that.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to raise anything else?
This is Harinder Ahluwalia.
Let me first introduce everybody to Harinder Ahluwalia. He is 1966 BTech, the first batch from IIT Delhi. He has been living in Montreal for the last 50 years. He is also an advisory board member of GCC, and he is such a lovely gentleman who takes so much of interest in in the initiative that in the community that we are building. This gentleman took the efforts to actually make what I would call as the first version of what GCC. It is incorporating all different elements of what we've been discussing so far. So a big thank you to you, Harinder, for everything that you've been doing. Now, please, I welcome you to talk to the community.
Thank you. I've been asked by graduates of 1967 batch to speak about global warming, its effects and remedies. So I will be giving a webinar on that in the near future as the president of International Forum of Meteorological Societies of the World. So I will like to invite our IITD as well as from other IITs people so that they can also know what global warming is all about. Most of us might already know, but then there are different aspects. That's one thing. The second one is, I have seen the Constitution development. I think a meeting is definitely required, and we will talk about what items should be included, what should be desirable, and how we are going to implement those. I mean, having items there is great, but what is the practical side of it, how we will implement. So we should work on that and make a document which will be very helpful for deciding what exactly we can achieve and what we would like to achieve in the future. Those are the two comments.
Absolutely, and I would encourage, you see, in the last GCC meeting, I had sent out an email for everybody who would like to take part in the meeting to finalize the charter, as we call it, which includes a whole lot of different items. And we got names of, apart from Harinder, Agyapal, Sundi, Manmohan, and Anchal. I would encourage, and the meeting got deferred purely because of timing and scheduling issues. But I would want to have this meeting very much before we have the next GCC meeting, and that gives us 1 weekend in between. And I would encourage anybody and everybody to take an active interest in this, because while we have special interest groups which are focused onto specific activities, but this will be the overall agenda, which will define what we are doing or what we want to do and what we will be achieving in. And it has to come down to including activities which are happening at different country levels. So once again, on behalf of Harinder, I would encourage everybody to please, I'll send out another email, and I'll share most likely on the next weekend. We'll look at catching up sometime and to kind of locking this down. So this is your agenda. This is your charter that we are talking about. So please take interest and come and join the session. Thank you very much, Harinder. As always, appreciate your focus areas.
You're very welcome.
Now, one more last thing that I want to update everybody is on that one of our EC members and a guy who has spoken to all of you a couple of weeks back. His name is Sudhir Twethia. This gentleman, he has lived in Ethiopia for quite a few years. And we are seeing there are a few EC members or a global EC members from Ethiopia. And there are a fair number of people who come from Africa to IIT Delhi for further studies. Unfortunately, the people from Ethiopia have not been able to join in because of internet connectivity issues over the last couple of weeks. Now, what I had a chat because I thought that it would be good because Sudhir has lived in Ethiopia and he can be part of GCC and look after Africa and get that up and running. So Sudhir will be also now part of GCC, but specifically focus on to Africa per se, and including Ethiopia, which apparently has a number of alumni coming through. Sudhir, are you still on the call? Let me just check. Sudhir. No, he may have dropped out. So anyway, I will record this in our minutes, and I thought I'll just update everybody. So then it is countdown. Any other questions? Otherwise, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And this is Pradeep Khanna from Sydney signing off. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to everybody. Till the next meeting, which is going to be on 3rd, which is the next Saturday, a fortnight. I think it is 3rd or 4th. I don't remember exactly, but I'll send you the invite. And we've got some very, very interesting sessions already planned. We've got a big list of leaders and perspectives from IIT Delhi, which we've been able to connect up with, and we'll be presenting those to you. And we look forward to growing this community as big as possible. So thank you all very much for where we are in the journey and the way forward. Take care.
You.
Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.